Welcome back to HQ Spotlight here on CBS Sports Network. CBS Sports college football slate set to begin with a good one. The Nevada Wolfpack rolling into Happy Valley, hoping to play spoiler on what could be another dominant year for Penn State. The Nittany Lions lost to Notre Dame in a heartbreaking fashion in the college football playoff semifinals, but enter the much-anticipated season with high expectations as James Franklin will once again try to bring a title back to State College. So we've got our eye on Penn State, and here to break it all down, we bring in our Penn State reporter, Tyler Donohue, and our Cover 3 podcast host, Tom Fornelli. Guys, let's start the conversation on offense, where good news for Penn State. They get their quarterback back, and Drew Allar, he'll be back behind center, Tyler. But who he's throwing to, I think, has always been a bit of a concern. The wide receiver problem over the years has been a pretty big one. So how's it looking ahead of 2025?
This is an ugly stat that's been repeated a bunch this offseason in State College, but no receiver catches in that Orange Bowl national semifinal loss to Notre Dame. And that's been a big deal to deal with all offseason. And so they've added 3 transfer players, and they're going to be at the forefront of what Penn State's going to look to accomplish with Drew Allar as a senior at quarterback. During the winter, Kyron Hudson came on board from USC. He was a starter out there for the Trojans. He actually scored a touchdown against the Nittany Lions out in Los Angeles last year. Then they went down to Troy. Bit of a leap up to Big Ten competition, but Devontae Ross was a 1,000-yard receiver at Troy last year. He was top 20 nationally in total yards per game, a big-time threat as a punt returner as well. And then more recently, coming off of spring ball, Trevor Pena comes to town. He was the big prize out there in the receiver market after taking all ACC honors at Syracuse last year, 80-plus catches, 10 touchdowns on the year. He's a guy who came up big in some key moments for them as well. So Penn State bringing them on board. They said goodbye to their 2 top receivers to the transfer portal, but I don't think there's a lot of love lost in that situation considering what that group failed to do last year and what they think this group could do to help boost up Drew Allar in year 4.
Yeah, I think when you look at the 3 names that you mentioned when it comes to Ross and Pena, these are 2 guys that were very much high-volume targets in their offenses last year. Pena was very effective out of the slot in Syracuse, and Ross was just a little bit of Mr. Do-Everything for Troy. But the more interesting one of the 3 to me is Hudson coming from USC because he gives the Penn State offense something I feel like it lacked last season in that he's 6'2", he's going to be playing the X receiver on the outside, and he gives them something of a vertical threat down the sidelines, which is how USC used him. If you look at how Penn State's offense worked last year, they really did not have a reliable, consistent receiver able to do that along the outside. Having Hudson will bring that element to the offense, which I think will unlock a few more things for Drew Allar and pretty much the running game and everything on that Penn State offense. So I think he's a huge addition.
I was just going to say, very refreshing to hear some names that could bring some good energy to that side of the ball for Drew Allar. The other good news here, gentlemen, is that the offense will also see the return of the running back duo of Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. Both of the guys saying they didn't like the way the season ended a year ago, so they wanted to run it back one more time. So, Tyler, if you partner that with a strong offensive line, it sounds like an easy question, but for Penn State, how does that open up their offense?
We asked offensive coordinator Andy Kotelnicki as spring practice was wrapping up, and he said the next step for the run game is to be dominant. And you could argue they were dominant during much of the postseason last year. Against Oregon, they broke out a bit. Katron Allen was a big story late in the season, really found a new groove for himself, played the best football of his career. He's also had the first full healthy offseason in his career. These are 2 guys, Nick Singleton, Katron Allen, who have balanced themselves, complemented themselves so well since their freshman year. They have a chance, if they duplicate their performance from last year of production, they can be number 1 and number 2 all time on the rushing leaderboard for Penn State. And they're working behind an offensive line that features 6 players who have at least 5 career college starts. It's a group that has a rising figure in Nolan Rucci at right tackle. He's a former 5-star, stepped up to fill in late last season and really looked like their best lineman during the playoffs. And a lot of people are high on Venga Ioane, preseason All-American type caliber guard. And there's just a lot to like when you match up with Phil Troutwine as a conflict with the offensive line room. And then these running backs pairing up with new position coach Stan Drayton, whose past success includes Bijan Robinson, Brian Westbrook. And you just start to get really excited about what this team might be able to accomplish offensively without even putting the ball in the air between Drew Allar and those receivers.
Penn State running game ranked 8th last year across the NCAA. Sounds like they're going to be pretty good again this year. They did lose a few big contributors, though, to the draft. We know Abdul Carter, Tyler Warren currently working through OTAs at the next level. So, Tom, if you're Penn State here, how do you replace those 2 names specifically?
Well, I'm not sure that you could really replace either of them. They were both extremely special talents. But I think if you look at Penn State's history, particularly when it comes to defensive end and pass rusher, they've got a pretty good history of replacing guys, because we were asking the same kind of question about Chop Robinson 2 years ago. How do you replace him? Well, you just throw Abdul Carter in, and guess what? He's even better. And I think if you look at their defensive line at the end spot, whether it's Denai Dennis Sutton, who was a very productive player last year, you've got Zariah Fisher, and there's Max Granville, who I thought showed some really good flashes in a limited role last season, who I think will be able to step into that role. For me, along the defensive line, the bigger concern is at defensive tackle, because outside of Zane Durant, I don't know if there's any really truly proven commodities there, so that'll be interesting. And as far as the tight end position, when it comes to Tyler Warren, we touched on it a bit with the receivers that they brought in. You can't really replace Tyler Warren because he was a unicorn, but he was also playing that role last year because they didn't really have great options at wide receiver to work with. So he kind of became the workhorse. And while Luke Reynolds is probably this guy that's slated to step into that role, he's not going to be Tyler Warren. Instead, you're going to rely on Kyron Hudson, Trevor Pena, and Devontae Ross to carry more of the load in the passing game and be a more, more spread out across all the targets.
With that said, I still don't think 12 personnel is going to be extinct in State College, because they love Khalil Dinkins. They think he's one of the most underrated aspects of this entire roster. He was the #2 guy at tight end last year, Tyler Warren. Not many people took notice, but he's a ferocious blocker, and he's a guy who's always made the catches when it matters. You just heard Luke Reynolds get mentioned. A lot of buzz around him. Former 5-star guy, the #1 tight end recruit for us at 24/7 Sports in the 2024 cycle. Definitely names to know. And I just think at tight end, 3 guys that started before Tyler Warren became second-round picks in the NFL. So we've had this conversation before in State College. Who's going to step up at tight end? I think they've got 2, maybe 3 guys who are ready to be starter quality. Andrew Rapplier is the 3rd player. He actually started the season opener last year opposite of Tyler Warren. Unfortunately, he suffered an injury the ensuing week, missed the remainder of the season, but he just posted a video of him putting together some route running work, and he looks really good. So I think they've got 3 guys in Dinkins, Reynolds, and Rapplier who can help do what they can to step up and fulfill what they need without Tyler Warren, Mr. 104 catches last year.
Yeah, and just to echo Tom's point, you can never replace a name, but certainly finding the next person up who's going to be the next name is the priority there for Penn State. We also know, gentlemen, that it's time for James Franklin to step up. It just seems like every single year we're debating whether or not he's on the hot seat. Is this the year that he breaks through? Does he finally bring a championship? And Tyler, last year he was so close, right? Takes his team all the way to the college football semifinals and yet still comes up short. So I ask you this question in a year where we're talking about Penn State, this being the year that they could break through and win the championship. Take us inside the mind of James Franklin. How is he feeling? What's the pressure like for him as he faces another year of this same conversation?
I'll do you one better. I'll take you inside the moves of James Franklin. That's getting the green light to go spend more than $3 million a year on his new coordinator, Jim Knowles. That's going out and getting Stan Drayton, one of the most highly coveted running back coaches in the country, to come and replace someone they really liked in Jaywan Sider. That's being able to find the NIL finances to go and add a Trevor Pena, the most coveted wide receiver in the post-spring transfer portal. And that's all adding up for this to be an eggs in the basket, all-in type season for Penn State. They had the roster retention. A lot of people have referenced the model that Michigan took to win the championship in 2023, Ohio State in 2024, where it was a lot of roster retention paired with some key additions. And here in Happy Valley, this is year 12 for James Franklin. It's my 9th year covering this team. There has never been as much open discussion about national championship goals, Big Ten championship goals. That's a big deal. This is a team that has not won the conference title since 2016, when it was a very surprising run then. They have not beaten Ohio State since that 2016 season, and naturally, a November 1st trip to Columbus is going to loom very large.
It always does, every single year. So with that, Tom, got to get a schedule prediction from you. We know they open the season August 30th on CBS with Nevada coming into town. How does it all shake out for the Nittany Lions?
I think it's going to be a pretty excellent regular season. As Tyler just mentioned, there are national championship buzz and, goals being thrown about Happy Valley. I don't know if that's going to be the ultimate spot, but I do think a Big Ten title is well within reach, because if you look at this schedule and you look at the returning talent this team has, and then you just look at the question marks around the other supposed powers in the Big Ten, I think a lot of things are working in Penn State's favor here. I think they should beat Oregon at home, even though the Ducks will still be good. The only loss I have them suffering, as you can see, is on the road at Ohio State, but that's an 11-1 record in the regular season, and if they only have one Big Ten loss, I feel very confident saying that they will be playing in the Big Ten Championship again next season.
All right, we'll have to wait and see. Maybe this is the year, but we certainly appreciate both you guys hopping on HQ Spotlight with us. You can keep up to date with the latest in college football with our partners at 24/7 Sports, a team full of writers and analysts just like Tom, who will bring you up-to-the-minute details about your favorite teams. You can check them out online at 247sports.com and streaming all their content on YouTube. And while you're at it, check out Tom Fornelli and the crew with the latest headlines in college football and a laugh or two along the way on the Cover 3 podcast. You can scan that QR code on your screen for the latest episode. The guys are headed to summer school. Scan that QR code right now.